Okay, so what I want to show you is just how to get the primers online. So here I am, I'm in Thermo Fisher Scientific, and I just want to search. And in this case, primers are called oligos, and I want to get a custom-made primer. So I'm going to go custom, and their DNA, and their oligos. And here we have only one hit, which is custom DNA oligos, real-time PCR reagents and kits. So I go there, and I have a couple choices here. Here's my custom oligos in tubes, which is great. Couple choices here. I really just want standard oligos. I'm not getting anything unique in this case, so ones that they should know about. And I've already pasted some in here, so I did 4FA short was the one that I'm looking for. This is a forward primer for getting the eukaryotes and archaea. Then I pasted in the sequence. So here's ATC, CGG, TTG, ATC, CTGC. That's the sequence I want. Down here, I want 50 nanomoles, desalted, dry formulation, and you can see it only costs $4.96. So I click that in, and then I'll get these by tomorrow in a tube that I just have to rehydrate with water. Okay, now that I've finished ordering my primers, and I ordered 4 of the primers, the next thing is to look at the master mix. And I could just type in master mix up here, but I know the master mix that I want, so I want an Amplitac. Gold master mix. So I can just type that in here. First hit, Amplitac Gold Master Mix right here. I just click on that. We can go down and look at this. This is a little bit more expensive. So for 5 mLs, it costs $330. For 1 ml, 124. I actually need the 5 mLs. And so we'll get that for the class and add it to the cart. Okay, so the next step is to hydrate our primers. So I just got these in the mail. Here are our primers. Here is 8F. We have 1391R. We have our 4FA short and our 1492R. So these basically have 50 nanomoles inside. And so what I want to do then is to take these and add 500 microliters of water to each one. Okay, so over here then I have sterile purified water that I bought, and we have our pipetter set for 500. We'll open this up, take this in, open the tube, suck up our water, and we'll put this in. So 500 microliters of water in there, and I'm going to repeat that for each of these other 3 tubes. All right, now we're ready to set up our PCR reaction. So here's a PCR tube. We can see how big it is compared to the actually 1.5 ml microcentrifuge tube that we had yesterday. So a lot smaller. This is going to fit in the thermocycler. We're going to make 2 PCR reactions. One is going to be using the primers for the archaea and eukaryotes, and that's going to be our 4FA short and our 1492R. So this is our forward primer, this is our reverse primer. Our second tube, then we're going to use our primers for our bacteria, which is our reverse primer is 1391R. Our forward primer is going to be 8F. Okay. Now in order to do this, I'm going to start with the water. So here's our sterile water. We'll put our pipetter to 19 microliters. Okay, we'll use our 20 to 200 microliter pipette tips. We'll go ahead and take the sterile water, And we will add 19 microliters of sterile water to both of these PCR tubes. Now what we want to start with is usually more fluid rather than less fluid. So we start with the higher volumes rather than the lower volumes within this. Okay, so now I'll get rid of that pipette tip. Now I'm going to switch this to 25 microliters. Here is our Amplitech Gold. So here's our Amplitech Gold Master Mix with everything in it that we need. And we basically just need 25 microliters of our Master Mix in both of these as well. So I'll get this, I'll get 25 microliters and we'll put it in to that one, and 25 microliters and put it into that one. Okay, so right now our PCR tubes are both exactly the same. So finally then what we want to do is we want to add our primers, and we want to add our DNA. Okay, so I have this set on 2 microliters. We will use these smaller pipette tips, and then basically I'm going to mix that up really well. And this is our forward primer, and I'm going to get 2 microliters of our forward primer and put it in here into this one. Mix it up, make sure it gets in there. Okay. I'll put the lid back on. And then get a new pipette tip. And we will get 2 microliters of our 1492 reverse primer. And we'll get it in here. Mix it all up, make sure it gets in there. Okay. Then we're going to get 2 more microliters into our other one. So we'll get our forward primer and our reverse primer in here. So here is our 8F forward primer for bacteria. We will make sure we get it mixed up. And 2 more microliters with our 1391 reverse primer. And we'll get it in here and mix it all up. Finally then we have to add our DNA from our extracted DNA that we got the other day. So here's our DNA from group D. And we're adding 2 microliters of this, so we want to mix this all up in here. And then pat that all down, get it down in the bottom. And we'll get 2 microliters of our DNA and put it in here. Mix it all up. And finally then, 2 more microliters of our DNA. Put it in here. Make sure that it's in there. Alright. And we'll close this PCR tube. We will close this PCR tube. We'll flick them a little bit. Let's get this all mixed up in there. Flick it a little bit, get it all mixed up in there. And we'll be ready to move to the thermocycler. Okay, so now we're ready to complete the PCR. So this is our thermocycler. And I've just turned it on, turned the power on. And so here we have our screen. We can see that if I scroll down, I want to basically scroll down to the program in here, which is green. And so we'll select the green program. Okay. Here I have my PCR tubes. I ended up making 4 instead of just 2. They're labeled on the top, so this one is AE1, indicating archaea and eukarya for our first one. Here is a B1 for bacteria, number 1, AE2, B2. So we'll open this up. We will place our PCR tubes inside, and you can see if we wanted to, we could have up to 20 different tubes in there. We're only just running 4. We'll close this then. Make sure it's all nice and closed on there. Alright, and then we're going to run the program. And the program's basically going to run for 2 hours. It says yes or no. And we will say yes. So the way that this works is that it's going to increase to 95 degrees. And that 95 degrees then being the first step, it'll hold that for 5 minutes. And during that 5 minutes, the DNA separates. It's then going to cool down to 50 degrees for about 30 seconds, where the primers are going to attach. Then it's going to heat back up to 72 degrees for 1 minute. And when it does that, then the Taq polymerase attaches, and all the DNTPs then complete the strands in there. Then it's basically going to repeat those series of steps for about 34 different times. So that's going to give us tons and tons and tons of DNA fragments as a result of this PCR. Now it's going to run for 2 hours, and at the end of 2 hours we will turn it off. Alright, so 2 hours have passed and the program is finished. So we'll go ahead and open this up, and we'll grab our tubes out, place our tube in this PCR tube holder, and then we're all finished. All these tubes then have DNA, so I'm going to transfer these to the refrigerator, and they'll sit in the refrigerator until we're ready to go on and do the electrophoresis.